The name's Bond, James Bond. That single line introduced the world to one of cinema's most legendary characters. For over 6 decades on screen and even longer in literature, this British spy has captivated audiences worldwide. But here's something fascinating that often gets overlooked. Throughout every iteration of the character, one element has remained constant. The man always wears a watch, and these aren't just ordinary timepieces. They're weapons, gadgets, communication devices, and most importantly, they reflect who Bond is and the era he exists in. Today we're diving deep into the incredible history of every watch that has graced the wrist of 7. If you're into watches, cinema history, or just love a good story, hit that subscribe button for TICV's TOCK and tap the bell icon. We bring you content you won't find anywhere else. Let's start at the very beginning. The character of James Bond was born from the imagination of Ian Fleming, a man whose real life was almost as thrilling as his fictional creation. Fleming bounced around quite a bit before finding his calling. He got kicked out of military academy, failed as a stockbroker, then landed at Reuters as a journalist. That's where he got his first taste of the intelligence world. During World War II, he served in British naval intelligence, and those experiences would later fuel his writing. When he finally sat down at his desk in Jamaica to write, he created a character heavily influenced by everything he'd witnessed. The name James Bond actually came from an ornithologist who wrote books about birds. Fleming wanted something bland because he envisioned Bond as a blunt instrument, a catalyst for action rather than a deeply layered protagonist. Fleming himself wore a Rolex Explorer, which launched the same year as his first novel Casino Royale in 1953. When he eventually described Bond's watch in his second book, he basically described his own Explorer. Luminous numerals, expanding bracelet, stainless steel case. That's really all the description we ever got, but it established something important. Bond was a Rolex man from the very start. When the films began in 1962 with Dr. No, Sean Connery stepped into the role. Interestingly, the first watch we actually see on screen is a small gold Grune Precision 510, likely Connery's personal timepiece. But the watch that became truly iconic was the Rolex Submariner Reference 6538. Legend has it that the producer lent his own Submariner for the production. You catch a glimpse of it when Connery's Bond watches Honey Rider emerge from the ocean. The following films kept this Submariner front and center. Goldfinger in 1964 gave us that legendary close-up of Bond checking his watch on a NATO strap. That single image cemented the Submariner as the definitive spy watch for generations of enthusiasts. There was even a GMT Master in that film, worn by one of the characters, marking a rare appearance of 2 classic Rolex models in the same movie. Thunderball introduced something new. The Breitling Top Time appeared as a gadget equipped with a Geiger counter for tracking nuclear materials. In reality, it was a chronograph designed for motorsport enthusiasts, but on screen it became spy equipment. After Connery departed, George Lazenby briefly took over. His audition story is legendary. He reportedly bought a Submariner specifically to impress the casting directors and wore a suit that Connery had ordered but never picked up. In his single film, he wore both a Submariner and what collectors now call a pre-Daytona, possibly the only time that particular Rolex model appeared in the franchise. Roger Moore's arrival in the 1970s coincided with massive changes in watchmaking. The quartz crisis was reshaping the entire industry as Japanese manufacturers flooded the market with affordable electronic timepieces. Moore started with a Rolex Submariner equipped with a magnetic device, but the digital era quickly took hold. The Hamilton Pulsar appeared as one of the first LED digital watches in cinema. By the late 70s, Seiko had become an official partner. Their digital watches showed up regularly, complete with features like ticker tape message printers and even a tiny television screen that made the Guinness Book of World Records. Moore wore various Seiko models throughout his tenure, reflecting the technological optimism of that decade. The relationship was so strong that Seiko produced commercials featuring actual film footage. Timothy Dalton brought a grittier interpretation in the late 80s. His Bond wore a Tag Heuer Night Diver, though it was so unclear on screen that enthusiasts only recently identified it. His second film featured a Rolex Submariner date, which turned out to be the last appearance of a Rolex in the official series. After Dalton departed, legal disputes kept Bond off screens for 6 years. Pierce Brosnan finally got his chance in 1995 after being denied the role years earlier due to television contracts. GoldenEye launched a new era and a new watch partnership. Omega became the official timepiece of James Bond, a relationship that continues today. The costume designer suggested that a former naval intelligence officer would naturally wear a Seamaster dive watch. Brosnan loved the blue dial version and wore variations of it through all 4 of his films. These watches came equipped with lasers, detonators, and various gadgets, while Omega heavily marketed the connection through commercials and tie-in products. The GoldenEye video game became culturally massive, further cementing the Omega Seamaster in popular consciousness. Daniel Craig took over in 2006 with Casino Royale, finally adapting Fleming's original novel. Craig brought intensity and physicality to the role, while also being a genuine watch enthusiast in real life. His films established a pattern of wearing dressier Seamaster models for elegant scenes and rugged Planet Ocean divers for action sequences. There's even a scene where another character mistakes his Omega for a Rolex, and Bond quickly corrects her. Skyfall introduced the Aquaterra, while Spectre featured a vintage-styled Seamaster 300 on a NATO strap, a clear homage to Connery's classic look from decades earlier. Craig's final film featured a titanium Seamaster Diver 300 with authentic British military markings. He personally visited the factory to help design it. Due to pandemic delays, the watch actually released before the film did, creating an unusual situation where fans could own the Bond watch before seeing it on screen. The titanium construction made sense for an action-oriented diver, and the military details added authenticity that longtime fans appreciated. Now we find ourselves at an interesting crossroads. Craig has departed the role. The search for the next Bond continues with endless speculation and debate. But one thing remains absolutely certain. Whoever steps into those shoes will have a watch on their wrist. From Fleming's personal Explorer inspiring the original literary descriptions through Rolex Submariners and Seiko Digitals, all the way to modern Omega partnerships, timepieces have been essential to this character's identity for over 70 years. That's the complete history of James Bond's watches. If you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to subscribe to Tick V's TOCK and drop a comment telling us which Bond watch is your favorite. We'll catch you in the next one.